Hello, I'm Brian Fitzgerald, the Golf Doctor, and today I'm going to take a look at why we have bounce on our wedges and how we can use that to help us play better wedge shots. So if this is your first time to this channel, welcome. This channel is all about helping you play better golf and lowering your golf score. So one of the best ways to lower your score would be to click on the subscribe button down the bottom there, hit the bell notification, and you'll be notified of every single tip when I release them every Monday morning, 9 AM Melbourne time. So today we're going to take a look at wedges, and in particular the bounce on wedges. And a lot of people misunderstand what bounce is. And we've been told a lot about bounce over the years, but what is bounce? So if we take a look at this club here, you can actually see that there is a bit of a rounded top. So that roundedness is bounce. So if I sit that flat on my hand, this wedge that you can see, that leading edge is sitting pretty close to my hand. What is the role of bounce? Bounce is really there to help keep your golf club moving. So with this low bounce lob wedge that I've got here, in the really soft conditions, I'm going to find the club might tend to dig a little bit. And I have a lot of clients that have great wedges for summer, and they come out in winter and they just start digging into the ground and, as the Americans say, lay the grass over the top of the ball, hitting it fat, we call it in Australia. And that's purely what bounce does. So in the softer conditions, it would be good to actually allow the back of the club to hit first. If I'm allowing the leading edge of the club to hit the ground first, it's going to dig. So having more bounce on the club enables to keep the club moving. If I don't have that bounce, the leading edge digs in, stops it from moving. So it's really important we actually get the right bounce for the right conditions. So it's also to do with swing type as well, but it's a lot to do with conditions. So if you're playing in quite soft conditions or spongy grass, thicker grass where the ball sits up, it's a good idea to have a wedge that has more bounce. So that will help allow the back of the club to hit the ground first, and it won't dig in as much. And with the ball sitting up, it's no problem to get that club under the ball. But if we do that in really tight lies, really firm conditions, if the back of the club hits that ground first, it then tends to bounce a little bit. So the leading edge is going to hit the belly of the ball and you're going to tend to knife it or hit it thin. Not a great result. So we've got to really work out what the conditions are that we play. So generally speaking, harder, firm lies, you want lower bounce, and softer, spongier, ball sitting up, you want a higher bounce. So because I play in Melbourne with firm conditions, as I've said, I have a low bounce option in my 60-degree sand wedge, but I carry a pitching wedge, a 50, a 55, and a 60. Okay, so here is my lob wedge. It's a 60 degree, 6 degrees of bounce. And when I sit that on my hand, you can see that that leading edge sits pretty close to the back of my hand. So it's going to get that leading edge under the ball from firmer lies. Alternatively, I also have a 55-degree sand wedge, and this one has 9 degrees of bounce, so it's got 3 degrees more bounce. So when I sit that one on the back of my hand, you can see that the leading edge does sit up just a little bit more from the back of my hand. So I tend to do a lot of my pitch shots from spongier type grass where the ball's sitting up with my 55-degree sand wedge, and I can manipulate. I've trained enough and I'm skilled enough that I can just open or close the face. I can produce a variety of shots. With my 60-degree, 6-degree bounce, from this tight lie it's perfect, but as I said, if it gets a bit wet, the leading edge is going to play havoc with the interaction of the ground. It's going to dig a little bit. So the beauty of this is I have some choices. I don't just go for my 60 all the time. It very much depends on the shot at hand. So I was recently at a coaching conference up in Queensland, and we had Bob Vokey out, the great wedge designer, and he was fitting Jeff Ogilvy. And Jeff Ogilvy has a sand wedge that he uses out of a bunker, and he has 54 degrees of loft. That's quite often, that's the most he uses. Now he can manipulate it, he's good enough to be able to produce a variety of shots. But he also has a slightly more bounce option in a 52, and he can then play a variety of shots around the green utilising the bounce. So I'll do a bit of a demonstration on how I use bounce. So the thing about wedges, whatever the wedge is that you're using, we really want to keep our angle of attack quite shallow. The steeper we come down, the more we get our hands in front of the ball, the more we expose that leading edge down to the ground, and the worse the result is going to be. So we want to shallow out that angle of attack. And a really good analogy is, you imagine that I'm standing here on a coffee table that's made of glass. We'll say it's reinforced under where I'm standing. If I was to come down steep on top of that glass on the coffee table, I'm going to probably get and break the glass. If I create that shallower angle of attack, I'm not going to break the glass, but the club is going to bounce slightly off that coffee table. I'm still hitting down, but there's no danger of me shattering that glass. So that's a good visual image that you need to have when playing this shot. So we just want to try and get that angle of attack shallow, ball in the middle. We don't want to really position our hands forward too far, because the more we do that, the more we expose the leading edge. I want to use the bounce as much as I can on this club. So if I'm going to go for this little flag stick just over here in front of me, shallow angle of attack, and we'll see how I go. So it dug in a little bit. It's very, very soft conditions here, as I said, but that's not too bad a result. If I then use my 55 degree, this has got 9 degrees of bounce, so you'll see how that one there just dug in as I hit. So I'm still going to use that shallow angle of attack. I'll try and do the same swing, and we should see there's a different interaction of turf. Same setup. So that's a much better shot. You can see that I hardly took a divot, just a very light scraping of grass. And it was the same technique, but the more bounce helped me to play a much better shot. That lower bounce option, even from this reasonably firm surface, although as I said, we've had a bit of rain, it is slightly damp, it dug in a bit. So as I'm playing that shot, I'm just feeling the back of the club. I feel like the back of the club is making contact first. I'm not trying to get that happening and get that shaft on that angle. I'm just trying to utilize the bounce of the club, keeping my angle of attack shallow. We'll do one more. And that's a much better shot. So there you have it. That's the role of bounce in your wedges. The best thing you can do is actually go and get a wedge fit. There's a lot more to wedge fitting than just bounce, and I'll do that on another video. But it's really worthwhile getting your wedges fitted and getting the gapping right. Thank you for letting me help you with your golf. I'm Brian Fitzgerald, the Golf Doctor, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.